how the bell works, I guess.
Are you a buckethead?
Huh?
Are you a buckethead?
No, I work paramedic.
Oh, that's so much. I'm a paramedic too. I'm so thankful.
Yeah, I heard from Canada, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll let this one slip. But don't let it happen again.
All right.
We'll see you, man.
All right. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
All right, later.
See you later.
Later.
All right. So let me jump into a few things here, guys. I'm going to share a screen. Boom. Tyler, I know you just jumped in. I basically gave him the spiel that you're going to hear again. So let me go into Freshline the club, just for the new guys, basically. So really quick, how the club started. Jordan and I went to Guatemala, and we saw some motorbikes as we were walking through a town, and we're like, hey, we should rent motorbikes. And then we did that, and bottom line is we ended up going through actually a lot of the scenery that you're seeing on screen right now. Going through a lot of jungle in the highlands, went through and saw a bunch of villages and people that we wouldn't have seen if we had just taken the bus, or definitely we wouldn't have seen if we just took the local tourist route. We found just a bunch of amazing stuff. And from that trip, we decided, hey, we should totally do that again. We should get a bunch of our friends. And so a few months after that, we messaged a bunch of our friends and said, hey, we want to organize a trip together. Like, who wants to go with us and go and explore other parts of this country? And a bunch of our friends said, yeah, we'd love to go with you. And then when it came down to it, not a single one of those guys actually pulled the trigger and decided to go with us. And we're like, okay, well, that sucks. But there must be other guys out there that want to go and just explore these countries together. So from there, we just did a general shout out on Facebook and Instagram to like friends of friends, like, hey, we're going on this trip. Anybody who wants to go, and it's not a tour. We just want to go explore this country together. Let's get together. We're all just going to meet in Guatemala, and we're going to go from there. And with the footage that you're seeing on screen right now is from that trip, where we had a bunch of kind of random guys just that had the same attitude towards adventure and were totally open to anything. And we decided to go on this trip. So part of it was itinerary, and a lot of it was just kind of exploring as we went. And then from that, our intention was like, we'll do this trip, and then we didn't really have any big plans to do anything from there. However, from that, those guys talked to a few other guys, and we ended up forming another trip and another trip and another trip. And up until just a couple of months ago, the club has grown just by word of mouth, just guys talking about Freshline, and or some of it's been through just people seeing us on Instagram. So that was kind of how we got rolling. I think one of the reasons that a lot of guys are attracted to Freshline is because it's more than just a trip. It offers more of almost a way of life. Because a lot of guys that are coming on these trips, once they go on one trip, they're finding ways to go on a number of trips with us, because they're attracted to the adventure, obviously, but they're also attracted to the brotherhood. So the guys coming together and the opportunity. So something that's a little bit unique about us, and I'm happy to be corrected on this, but I've done a bunch of Googling. As far as I can tell, we are the only international adventure club that's out there that actually organizes expeditions like this. There's a lot of other adventure clubs, but they're I should say, all of them that I've seen are just in country. We're the only ones that kind of venture out and do these trips internationally. There are international tour companies, but that's not what we are either, which I'll get into in a second here. So I want to be really clear about something for the new guys. We're not a tour company. When we go on these trips, our intent is to go and explore a country. So we explore, we don't tour. And what that means is we will collectively plan on what country we go to together. Once we've planned on that country, then while we're in country, there's a few highlights that will be part of our itinerary that we want to check out. The rest is club decision making, and we can make that decision making, and often we will when the trip starts. We'll have a discussion about it, and then even day to day, we'll discuss where we're going to end up that day on some of the aspects of the trip where we have a choice where to go. And then even if we decide that in the morning, we might be cruising in the afternoon and we might see some side road that goes up into the jungle, or we might go out into the highlands, or we might go into the desert, depending on what country, what region we're in. And if we want to explore it, we'll take that as a vote and we'll go and explore it together. And that is really the unique aspect of Freshline, is the fact that we're going and we're exploring these places together. And to us, that defines raw adventure, because a lot of times an adventure tour will say we're going on an adventure, and I don't want to take anything away from that. A tour company is good for what it is, but that's not what we're doing. What we really want to cultivate is a sense where we're all going into an area or a destination or an experience that none of us have experienced before. So it's all got a slight element of it definitely has an element of the unknown, but it has an element of danger, inherent danger in that as well. Now, that's not to say that we're not trying to be prepared as we go into this. We definitely want to make sure that we're going in and we have thought of like what we need for repairs, what we need for medical, what we need in case there's an emergency. We want to go in prepared, but we also want to leave that element that's a little bit on edge, that keeps it fun, basically. So one of the things I'll say to that too is, because we get into these situations that we've never been into before, there's a lot of possibility for us getting into sticky situations. So that could be anything from we've got a flat tire to a bike breaking down, to getting held up in the road in Guatemala, to getting stuck in the desert in Namibia, to getting or running into elephants in Thailand. Like, there's just situations where nobody quite knows exactly what to do, but part of the beauty of
Ladyboys. You forgot the Ladyboys.
That's also a very risky scenario, the Ladyboys in Thailand.
Point
is that what we found in this, as the club kind of evolved, was that a huge draw of the club was the fact that in order to get through a lot of these situations, you had to have each other's backs. A lot of these scenarios were scenarios that would be really tough to get through on your own. And that's why a lot of guys might not travel to some of these destinations as a solo traveler, but they don't necessarily want to go with a tour group that's super regimented either. And so we're kind of the in between, and as far as I know, we're the only ones that exist in that space where we get ourselves into some sticky situations, but what we're looking for in the club primarily is an attitude that says, I've got your back, I'll step up when we need it. And the reason that we often will call these groups teams is because in those teams we define roles, what each person is responsible for. And so when we get into a sticky situation, there's not a lot of guesswork. People know like where their strengths will come into play. So that's definitely something that's fostered the Brotherhood with Freshline. From there, just expanding on the Brotherhood component of it, another thing that makes us a bit unique is the fact that this Brotherhood, it exists beyond just the trips. So we keep in touch with almost every guy that's come on a trip. We'll keep in touch with over the years, and there's an option as a member to come into the bi-weekly meetups and just shoot the shit, see what's going on in life, help each other out with challenges, hold each other accountable to some degree to whatever goals you set for yourself. And then we continue meeting each other throughout the world on these different trips. And that's not to say that all of us are going on 1 or 2 or 3 trips a year. It's pretty normal for a guy to come on a trip a year, or maybe one every 2 years, but you get to know a bunch of the other guys that are going on these expeditions around the world. So you get to foster that brotherhood. What I'll say too, like in my experience with Freshline, it really starts to, let me put it this way, if you go on more than one trip, it starts to become part of how you define yourself. And I'm not going to speak for all the other members, but I know for myself, one thing that really kind of keeps me going in life is Freshline, because you've always got another expedition to look forward to, even if it's a few years away. But it defines part of your identity. Like, there's a piece of me that feels, without sounding too pretentious, feels a little bit like a badass, because I'm like, yeah, this is part of my life. Like, I go into my garage and I can look at like all the places, all the destinations I've been and ridden around the world, and unique places that most guys would be stoked to just ride one of those places ever. And I look and like there's already a wall full of places that we've been to and will continue to go to. And then more than just like the pride of saying, yes, I've been to those places, is the fact that you realize it actually redefines who you are, because it allows you to push your boundaries and redefine yourself. And that's kind of how we define adventure. Adventure is really, it's the bridge between who you are now and who you're going to be in the future. And that person that we've kind of, at least for myself, that I've evolved into over the future is somebody that is a lot more bold than I was before Freshline, because you really learn that the world's a much bigger place than just where you live, where you work, and maybe the odd adventure you go on in and around your location. So bottom line is, it's really, really cool opportunity to live an adventurous lifestyle, and gives you some really epic stories. And then there's a few like perks of being part of the club as well. So yes, it's part of lifestyle, and I don't want to harp too much on like the perks of membership, but there are a few things that are unique that are not part of the club. So one is we do branded gear. That's something you definitely wouldn't typically get with other organizations, but because we're a club, because we're smaller, we can get away with that. So once you are indoctrinated in, then you get your own personalized gear. That's everything from like bags. And on that note, actually, the bags, we have sponsorship with a company called Moscow. If you're not familiar with them, they're pretty entrenched in the adventure space. And then, so because of that, when you come to the club, you get, as just part of going on one of our trips, you get gear from Moscow. And then if you want additional gear, we have some pretty steep discounts with them on top of like what we get initially. And then just general swag and stuff as well. So getting all that, and then like I said, then it's once you're in, you're part of a global brotherhood. And on that note, I know I had talked about like, you have each other's back on the trips. You have each other's back at home as well. And the thing that really sold me on the club, despite the fact that I'm a co-founder, so yes, I'm going to be biased, but the thing that really sold me on the club was little bit after one of our first expeditions, I was starting up a company, and I got into a place where I was really tight financially. And some of the members found out about it, and without me even knowing, they all pitched in into a pot, some cash they had. And a lot of those guys definitely weren't loaded, but they put enough cash into a pot, and Jordan gave it to me and said, this is a gift from the guys. And that was enough for 2 months rent for me to actually like figure out how to pull myself through, and that allowed me to pull myself through and build a pretty cool company from there. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without the Freshline guys. So I'm fully in. I'm 100% into the club, and if I can pass that forward any way that I can, then that's absolutely what I'm trying to do. So that's a bit about the club. Like I said, a little bit different than a tour. The big question from a lot of guys, understandably, is like, well, what's the pricing like? What does it look like for payment? I want to be very clear about the fact that so there's money that we take and we put that into a pot, and that's for the trip. Some of that money goes to paying the trip leader. So whoever the trip leader is, they get their costs covered for the trip. And then some of that money, especially more recently now, some of that money is starting to go into club admin costs. So for a lot of you guys, you might have seen us in ads on Facebook, the website that you're looking at, just ongoing costs that come up. We're definitely putting some of that money into admin costs, and if there's money left over, that is going into the club. So I don't want to say that we're a nonprofit. We were for a lot of years, but as we're expanding, we're realizing like, oh, this is taking more work. We actually need some money here to sustain what's going on. So I want to be clear about that fact. That being said, when you look at our typical trip costs, depending on location and timing, will range anywhere from, generally speaking, they're ranging anywhere from kind of like $4,000 US to $6,000 US. And if we look at tour companies that are operating in the same regions for the same time frames, it's usually close to double that for the trips that they're charging, and it's often a lot less. So when I talk about the charge rates, most of the time that includes food, bike, fuel, alcohol, entrances into all the parks, like everything. We kind of look at, okay, what's all going to be involved, and then we calculate our trip costs based on that, and the money goes into a pot. So yeah, I just wanted to address that question because it's one that often comes up. So from here, what I'm going to do is, I know that you guys might have some questions about Freshline. I'm going to get you to still hold them for a second, and then I'm going to pass it off to Kemper, because the reason a lot of you guys are here is looking at Namibia specifically, because we just locked those dates in. We've been waiting on Namibia for over 2 years now. So we're going to give you guys the dates for Namibia and also just some of the trip details with what's happening there. And on that side, I'm going to pass it off to Kemper.
What up, guys? I feel like I'm doing a podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah. Like, subscribe, or whatever the fuck you're else. Yeah, the thing with the pointing. Anyway, so Namibia finally back on the books, as long as Omicron doesn't shut down the whole world again. But right now we're planning like it's happening 2 times for 2 different things towards the end of the year. The first thing we're doing the last week of September, the first week of October, I just had it pulled up, is going to be Freshline's first boot camp, which, whereas Freshline is designed to be a true adventure with like-minded individuals from around the world, boot camp is going to have more a diversity of training and trying to improve yourself in a number of different domains and aspects of your life. There's going to be a lot of, great. It's really being run by another Freshline member who went with us last time to Namibia and thought it was just as magical as the rest of us did. His name is Mike O'Dowd. He's an ex-Navy SEAL BUDS instructor. He's going to be leading most of the training and most of the conceptual ideas behind it, which is, we're going to do everything from firearms training, orienteering, sea escape evasion type things. Learning some basics that are required to continue your Freshline adventures and do them well. Essentially bicycle mechanics, how advanced rider training, things like that. We're building the exact program. It's going to be about $5,000. We're looking to do about 4 to 6 of them a year. It's going to be, like I said, 2 weeks, the last week of September through the first week of October. There's Mike O'Dowd right there. It's going to be really special. And it's something that he and I kind of really came up with the last time we were in Namibia, which is just an incredible spot. If you've never been or never even heard anything about it, it's an entire country, twice as in California, that looks like Joshua Tree in every direction. And it is special. And there's no one there. It's the least populous country in the world by density. So it's a really cool experience and highly recommend it one way or the other. Secondly, and that's also less of an adventure. We're more going to have a base camp, and we'll go on 2-3 day motorcycle-based trips, go see some of the country, but it's not going to be explore into the wilderness. The Namibian Explore into the Wilderness will be the first 2 weeks of December, probably starting right on the 1st. Last year went west and then a little bit north. This time, because we try to not take the same track twice, haven't so far, and let's keep the streak alive. It's going to go northeast, I believe, up towards Victoria Falls, through some more of the game preserves. Different climate, but that's their spring. Weather is supposed to be great, and animals will be plentiful. So I think, if I was looking for the first trip I'd want to sign up for, it'd be that one, because I think that's going to be an incredible trip. That's why I fell in love with Freshline and what we do. But, I think we can fire some questions now, right, Eric? Or am I missing something?
I'm just going to go just a little bit deeper into the boot camp. So Kemper touched on it. I think one thing that is important, by the way, guys, this is on the website too. So if you want to get a little bit more information, what am I looking here? You can go to the website. Oh, here we are. If you're looking for what does boot camp specifically involve, so we've got PD, who's ex-Special Forces in Namibia, and he's different. That's different from Mike. So he's Namibian Defense Force, ex-Special Forces. He's going to do some wildlife training for general African expeditions, at least Southern Africa expeditions. He's going to be doing a lot of training with what are the different kind of wildlife you're going to encounter, how do you interact with it. There's lots of things out there that want to kill you. As Kemper alluded to, bike maintenance lessons, navigation is going to be part of this. Another aspect that we absolutely would need to test is going to be, and develop skills in, is going to be the different types of terrain that you're going to be riding in Africa. As Simon actually is on this call, as Simon can attest, and Kemper, it can be a real bitch. Going through the sand, going through straight sand for a full day is... Simon, do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, I gotta say, I went into that trip thinking I was capable. I wouldn't say like Billy Badass, but I thought I was capable as hell. And what Eric's alluding to, about halfway through our all day of sand, I just had a fucking meltdown. It's like, what are we doing out here? These are the wrong bikes and the wrong guys, and we got a 2-wheel drive truck. Fuck this. I had a good old hissy fit. They talked me off a ledge, and then about 6 or 8 hours of riding in sand later was like, you know what? Now I'm done.
Yeah.
It was fucking fast.
The best part of that was Simon laid down in the middle of this 115-degree sand in his full gear, including his helmet. Everyone else is stripping down as quickly as they can, getting the water on their body, trying to get any evap. And I'm like, Simon, you don't want to take at least your helmet off. It's really just going to keep you warm. Literally takes the helmet, pushes it down, and straps. He goes, I'm fucking good. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a fun hour we're about to go through. And he was right. Buckle up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was...
Buckle the fuck up.
Yeah, Africa will test you. That's the point. That's why we're doing boot camp in Africa. So another aspect of that, and Mike O'Dad's going to lead this. He's our ex-Navy SEAL guy. Physical training. Actually, PD probably will as well. PD also runs a CrossFit gym over there in Namibia. Or was CrossFit. Now it's whatever, dynamic training or whatever. So there's physical training aspect to it. There's also problem-solving exercises. We're going to put you guys against each other into some friendly competition. There's going to be some, we said self-defense training. Really what that means is we're doing some firearms training over there as well, because Mike O'Dowd's really good with the handguns, and he does quite a bit of handgun training, among other things. PD is really good long distance sniper training, so you guys will get a bit of both. And then there's a section too just on, you're going to be tested on leadership training. So everyone's going to get the opportunity to lead the crews, and they're all going to be getting evaluation and feedback. So you get evaluated 3 ways. You get evaluated from the instructors, you get evaluated by your peers, and then you do a self-evaluation, just where you sit on a lot of this stuff. And where you come out in boot camp will, to some extent, determine what you're eligible for as far as future trips. So if we're doing more comprehensive Africa expeditions, if we're doing Mongolia, if we're doing parts of the Middle East, boot camp will become a prerequisite for a number of those trips, having passed boot camp. So I know I harped on that a bit more than Kemper. I just wanted to make that really clear as far as like what you're getting out of boot camp that you wouldn't get in a regular expedition.
Look, I'm the guy who went to Namibia without a license and 1 day of experience, so I wouldn't have been allowed on anything.
Yeah, so now that we've kind of harped on that, boot camp, as Kemper said, is going to be September 26th to October 6th. What we haven't talked about is pricing. So boot camp is going to be running 5K, and that's going to be for, is that 10 days or 10 days, I think, for boot camp, right?
It's 2 weeks.
Is it 14?
I think so.
Just under 14.
Okay. Let's call it close to 2 weeks. Whatever the time is from September 26th to October 6th. So I'd consider it 2 weeks. And then for the Namibia expedition, that one we're going to do a little bit of vetting for, if you're not already a member, and that would be just a little bit under 4,500. Boot camp's going to be a little bit more expensive because we have instructors, we have external costs as well. We've got ammo for training, we've got a little bit more on the accommodation side, more as far as like materials and stuff that we need for the skills training and all that. So that's where we're sitting. Okay, any questions from you guys? We just kind of like blasted you here for the last half hour.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure. Go
Do
for
we,
it,
do we
Joe.
put the Freshline brand like on our chest? Or,
I'm on my left cheek.
Yeah, you think it would be like
Yeah.
tattoos, but no, it's hot iron.
if you want to send me the brand, I'll do it. I mean, take the card down.
You gotta do first.
What's
no,
that?
I mean this as a new member, and sorry I'm chiming in here against everybody else,
Yep.
but this sounds like legit.
Yeah. We're
awesome
definitely
experience and
yeah.
like all around just, I mean, way more than a moto group. So I'm surprised it was even just a motorcycle adventure club. It sounds way more than that. Almost like a.
It is, and it's grown like from that totally by accident, because I think what we are creating, there's a huge need in our society and as men, what we're not getting from our day to day, right? Like we need, and I mean, don't get me wrong, we do things safe, but we're pretty reckless. Like what we do, like Simon said, like this is ridiculous. Like yes, it very much is ridiculous. And like I take great pride in like telling my friends and family, like, what are you doing? And like you like that'll never work. You can't, like that's what I was told over and over again when we wanted to start it. Like you can't take strangers to a random country and ride motorcycles. I'm like, you sure as shit can, because we're gonna do it. But it does take a certain level of crazy and yeah, like for me, I have no interest in going on a tour, on being involved in a tour and leading a tour. Like that's profanity in the club. And if you say tour, you have to buy a round of beers. That's just, that's in the manifesto. So yeah, it's built on adventure, but then what it grew into was the Brotherhood, which we didn't expect, but we are sure glad that it did.
It's a camaraderie that I don't think exists right now with this era of webcams and videos.
Yeah.
Even amongst like high school, college friends,
Yeah.
you almost don't have that. And that's what's unique is all these strangers from different states and countries kind of getting together for this experience. I think is just, I mean, it's legendary. And you're right, I've never heard of this before, and I've done a lot of motorcycle trips.
Yeah.
And is Sam on this call? Did I see Sam Belton check in? Samuel?
He was here.
Yeah.
Sam had a really good, I use his kind of example a lot because he went and did, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Sam. He went and did like Morocco solo and did some solo trips, and then Freshline to him was just kind of the next stage of his riding development, because he's like, well, there's lots of stuff that you can't do solo.
Yeah, I've done all of it. I've done a lot of tours. Like when I was right out of college, I did a few, like after I got my first big job, did a few like fully guided tours, BMW sponsored, all that shit. And it was cool, it was nice to like ride and see another country. But then I started doing it on my own, doing a lot of riding, and when you're riding around Morocco with your wife on the back of the bike, you have zero margin for error when you're, you can't just like cool off down some side path. There's no margin for error there. So, that's why this appeals to me. Be able to push the limits a little bit and have that safety net in the group without it being like a sugar-coated, this is the tour, this is where we stop for lunch, this is, it's decisions and kind of getting to drive the train a little bit instead of going for the ride and trying to keep up.
I'll say two things really quick. One, bit of a compliment to I think what we do. Mike O'Dowd, the guy who's leading the boot camp in Namibia. One thing he said after the first trip was, that's the closest I've felt to having a Brotherhood since getting out of the teams, which just was like, oh, that's pretty cool. The second thing I will say, because I want to be very upfront about this, is that you absolutely will have points in your trip where you're uncomfortable. There's like, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not just like, this sucks, I don't want to be here in this moment, then it's probably not a Freshline trip. And that's what really differentiates us from the tour. Tour does everything they can to make sure you're as comfortable as possible and everything's going great. That's not necessarily what we're all about. Because part of the reason we built this brotherhood is because we've gone through these situations together, and if we don't, then the brotherhood doesn't form. We kind of found that out in Thailand. Like Thailand was too easy, and we really didn't have a tight group coming out of that. It was all good guys, but they didn't. It's not the same thing. They didn't keep in touch forever after that. It was like that was nice. See you guys never. So outside of that trip, every other trip's had its ups and downs, and that's what we found is kind of the magic sauce.
And for my own clarity, in order to be a member, you have to go to this boot camp, and then you get chosen amongst that boot camp to be invited to future trips.
So
I'm thinking that
you're close. So the boot camp is going to be definitely a vetting process for the trips that are more super intense, where we need to have guys that are absolutely like, Bear Grylls crazy. But there will be lots of trips that you can go on without having boot camp. Like Colombia is a good example. Like we're doing Colombia in the spring in April, and that's open to pretty much any prospect. I mean, barring if we became a club so that we could vet guys with the wrong attitude. So if you have the right attitude and you want to go ride motorcycles in Colombia, that's what's up. That's what we're about. So so because I'm borderline unstable, so that's always been a dream of mine to like push this club to a level of recklessness. But obviously you can't take strangers and do that. You have to take brothers and be all like, yeah, we're gonna go and ride to Everest Base Camp. Be like, you're gonna what? Like that doesn't sound like a good idea at all. Exactly. So that is the purpose of the boot camp is to vet any new members that want to take on one of those greater challenges and to just, we haven't, I hate using the word mandate, but it's just so in my vocab. But like we originally had thought about making it mandatory of like, you have to go to boot camp before you can go on an expedition, but it just didn't work out.
We can do enough of these trips without it that we don't. I'd say the majority of trips aren't going to require boot camp. Boot camp is definitely going to be vetting for future trip leaders and probably for the more extreme trips that are out there. But most of the things that are on the docket now, save for Mongolia, I don't think are requiring boot camp before.
And I think boot camp's also going to be like we had a guy who came to Peru, super awesome guy, and he's already signed up for another trip, but he couldn't ride well enough to hang, and he crashed twice and luckily didn't die. He should have died, but he's made out of iron.
Yeah, I should not have been there.
Yeah, he's on the call.
The man should not have done us.
I didn't see you check in. That's hilarious.
Had we had a boot camp, he would have been the perfect guy because his attitude was spot on, perfect. But just had some things to clean up, and then he would have loved it. He actually went home and bought a Versus, which I actually just sold my Versus, by the way, Phil. Sorry.
Hey, mine got stolen.
Covered,
so I found it in a pile of front yard of a crack house.
So good. So good. Wonderful. Well, I was going to come to the States and now I'm not. But I want to field I want to have some more questions from the new guys.
Well, I'll let you guys give me questions. One thing that is relevant to the boot camp is boot camp will be a prerequisite for leading trips. And another thing that makes this whole thing a bit more unique is that once you're a member, so to become a member, you're either going through boot camp or you're coming on an expedition with us and you're getting invited back. And then once you get invited back, like that's officially you're a member, a trusted member. Once you're a member, you have the opportunity, any member has the opportunity to lead as well. So if you're like, hey, I want to go lead a trip, it's open as long as we can find the guys to fill it. So if you want to lead a trip wherever, as I said earlier, whoever's organizing the trip doesn't have to be one of us. It can be any one of the members. If they're organizing the trip, the part of the money that goes into that pot is your trip is paid for. We're covering your costs. We're not going to pay you. This isn't a job. You don't get to go again and again and get paid. but we will cover your costs for that trip. So in order to be eligible for that, eventually boot camp will be a prerequisite, because there's enough shit that happens. We want our leaders to have the skills to pull the group through.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys, we all have other careers and families and kids, and Freshline is definitely a evolving entity, and it's way different than it was now than it was even back in 2018. So, you know, take everything that we say as far as what boot camp will be or won't be with a grain of salt, because all of a sudden an issue will arise and be all like, no, we've got to implement a stronger case for boot camp and stuff like that. And as a club, those will also be things that'll be voted on and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but boot camp is standing alone as its own personal development time. That's really
Yeah.
what it is. To go have your ass kicked, to be challenged, to go learn new things and come out a better person. We expect that it probably will be part of a required curriculum to make sure everyone's up to snuff before they're leading trips and doing some of the more gnarly stuff. But right now, if you're thinking about it, think about it more as a standalone adventure and way to get better at it in a more structured fashion than what Freshline Classic is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know if Kimper said this, but with boot camp, you're still exploring the country. You're still going around Namibia. You're
Yes.
still in the wild.
Yes.
The only difference is that it's not completely unknown to us. Boot camp is the only thing where we've ridden that route before. Other than that, we're still going around the country. We're still testing you guys in the same ways. We're still we're actually testing you a lot more ways. But yeah,
I guess it's the exact opposite of a boot camp of a tour, because a tour does pre-route planning to make sure that it's easy and nice and good, and we pre-route plan to make sure it's going to kind of suck a little bit. So that's that's who we were dealing with.
Let's open it back up to questions.
Yeah.
All right, somebody cut Jordan's mic.
Shit, I'll mute it, Kemper. I know we talked about this before.
Question. I have another question, because I'm
Yeah,
still
sure.
getting
Go for it, Joey.
Is this like 100% adventure riding? Is this you know, maybe during a trip you'll stop at a Mugello and do a track day, or next day you're riding through the city of Rome, but then you're also in the hill country. Is that how it works?
Depends on where we're going. So the only trips that we've got on the docket right now are Colombia in April and Namibia. So Namibia will have a boot camp in the expedition. Colombia will have a few more paved roads, and we're going through a few towns. Namibia is going to be like 95% gravel. And yes, we go through towns, but we actually, on all the trips, we try and avoid the big cities. Unless if we happen to be in Italy, yeah, sure, Rome would be on the docket. But in a lot of these countries that we're going to, a good chunk of them are going to be third world countries, because they're the countries that are not part of the normal tourist track for a lot of us. And so there's a fair amount of gravel. And I think to answer your question, if we can ride gravel, we're generally going to be riding gravel or just strictly overland. That being said, depends on the country. Peru had some amazing paved roads, and actually we did quite a bit of paved in Peru. Maybe, I don't know, 60-40, 70-30, majority being paved.
Probably 70-30.
Yeah, majority being paved with really wide open curves. So depends on the country that we're riding. We'll let you know before we go what the riding's going to be like, and it'll vary depending on what we're hitting up. So, I mean, shitty answer to your question is it depends on where we're going. But we do tend to be attracted towards the dirt as part of the adventure.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we I mean, and third world just, it promotes, I don't know what you call it, lawlessness or like lane splitting and no rules of the road, and that's what we want. Like I come back to Canada, it's all like, oh, don't split lanes, don't drive on the shoulders, and you're all like, I was just in Guatemala, like passing through semis and avoiding pedestrians, and that's, I mean, and we also, so me and Eric, we love travel as much as we love motorcycles. These are just the meshing of the two. So it's not just based around travel. It's not just based around the best riding. We try and find the best mesh of the two. Like we went to Peru. we went to Machu Picchu. We didn't ride there because you have to take a train, but there's no way we're going to Peru and not going and seeing Machu Picchu. So there is a good hybrid of the both, and we want there to be both as far as tarmac and dirt, because we want to expand what we're doing, what we're riding. For the guys that are more street oriented, it's going to be better for you to do the dirt because you're going to get more out of that trip. It's not going to be like, I went and buzzed around some chicanes and it was wonder bars. Like, man, we were stuck in the desert and I did it and I was going to have a meltdown. So definitely, and that's something we play on, is when we find out what your strengths and weaknesses are, we definitely help you develop.
If I could chime in with the what you were saying, actually, I guess full disclosure, I'm mostly experienced on the street, and I've just been, I guess I could call it my near midlife crisis. I'm so tired of looking down these roads that I want to go down. I can't go down with a Harley, and I got some adventure bike experience and some small dirt bike experience, and I've had so much fun on them. But my one of the things I'm really intrigued about is being with a group of people who know how to freaking rip, and maybe learning some good techniques and becoming a better rider off road and all that. Most of the questions I wrote down were like mostly like preparatory stuff, like gear and what kind of motorcycles we'll be riding. But it sounds like based on the expeditions it would be the kind of bike you're riding best fit for the expedition.
And it's more what's available, right? Like, we're going to these countries, like, we're going to Colombia. I would love to rent a fleet of KTM 450 EXCs. Nope, that's not going to happen. You're going to be on a Honda 300 because over there, that's the big bike. And you're all like, we'll make it work. But so it's all country dependent. And when you sign up for a trip, we send you a doc, and it lists all the different things. Like some countries, like New Zealand was a good example back before they shut down forever. Is they had the choice, the riders had the choice of about 6 different bikes that the rental companies had. And so you could, and they all had different price points. Obviously the Africa Twin is going to be a lot more than the V-Strom and all these different things. So it's all very, very trip dependent. But we will always be on bikes that we can go on the dirt. Like, I don't see us in the near future going and renting a bunch of rockets and going and doing that. Not yet. We will.
Do you plan to have chase trucks on all these trips? That was a big sorter for me.
Not all.
No.
So there's going to be ones like Mongolia needs to, because we need 3 days worth of fuel. But stuff like New Zealand wasn't going to have it. Colombia's not going to have one. Places like where I'm really keen on doing Chile. That's kind of high on my list to go up and do some high alpine or some high altitude
it's to
stuff.
be determined trip by trip. Namibia again will. It's going to depend on a host of factors.
However, Simon,
but we'll let that be known.
Namibia, we have a Land Cruiser down in Namibia for chase trucks, so it's a lot more capable than what we had. Yeah.
I wasn't clear on that showing up to Namibia last time and brought all the shit, like all of it for it was going to be panniers, and I had like spare tubes and patch kits and all the shit, and 3/4 of it stayed at PD's house. He's like, dude, I brought a truck. Shut up! Like, you don't need your tire inflator.
Yeah, and so I mean that's a disclaimer. Is like we're men, so our communication can be very man-like sometimes.
It's getting better.
It's getting a lot better.
It is getting better.
Trial and error. Yeah.
So if you have a question, please ask it, because there's a good chance that we won't think of it or be able to communicate it. But yeah.
To that point, I'd just chime in unsolicited that it is a good idea to get a bit of practice or just work out some of the kinks ahead of time, because it does suck to show up and be, I don't call it the weak link, but like...
Shut up, Simon.
You know what I mean? Like,
I'm right here.
all right. you know, you don't want to be the guy who's holding everybody up and waiting at the end, but vice versa. Like, it's kind of lonely at the front of the pack. So, you know, we're spending $5,000 to go across the world, and you know, you want to be in sync, but at the same time, the boot camp format enables everyone to catch up and kind of equalize.
Yeah, I'd say to Simon's point, for sure, that's why we developed the boot camp. Like, if you're having reservations, just do boot camp. Like, that's the cut and dry answer.
That's what it's designed for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Simon, I'm glad you said that, because do you guys send something out 6 months ahead of time, or maybe 8 months or more, that allows you to prepare?
We used to be a year. We would launch trips.
Yeah.
Yeah. Namibia was a weird case because we had a lot of guys cancel, and it was scrambly, and all of a sudden I couldn't go because I was having a baby. Well, my wife was. So that was our most frantic trip as far as like trying to get it patched together. But yeah, we normally send out as far in advance as we can, and it'll have, you know, what our accommodations are going to be. So then, like, you know, we'll let you know in that doc if we're going to be camping. Like Colombia, no camping because you're going to get murdered.
Another way of putting it in a more supportive way is like there's great resources locally for everybody. You know, before we went to Namibia, I recommended to Mike O'Dowd and Kemper that they go to a thing called SoCal Supermoto School, and it's in LA. It's like the best $200 you can spend per day of riding. And they take you on roads, on dirt, drifting, you know, fast as you can hit the brakes, scraping pegs on a track. And Kemper had not really told me that he'd never ridden a bike before, so that was probably an experience. But they both came out of it going, that was fucking awesome, and I feel way more comfortable on a bike. And taking that experience, translating it to 2 weeks on a bike, you can set yourself up for success.
Yep.
You said that's a SoCal Supermoto School?
Yeah, look into it. There's a great website. It's pretty famous, but they have versions all over the U.S. So you can use those as prep courses or whatever. You know, you want to cut your teeth.
The rawhide stuff.
All plus rawhide. I just did it 3 weeks ago. It was awesome. And I've been riding on the street for 10 years or 15 years, but it was like really next level, considerably more expensive than SoCal, I think, but it was worth every penny. And yeah, just did.
What was that one called? Rawhide?
Rawhide,
yeah.
They do mostly big bikes, so almost everyone's on a like R1200 GS.
Yeah. Where are they out of?
They've got
Colorado,
just north of LA, and one place in Colorado.
Dude, there's a BMW one in North Carolina about 4 hours from Nashville.
Yeah, I just heard of that one recently, and I've never done any kind of like riding school or anything, but I've always wanted to. So
yeah, it's amazing how like I've been riding my whole life, and I'm normally, you know, that guy at the front of the pack, like humble pie. But in Peru, it was not the case because we were riding with 3 guys that spent time on the track and did all that. And so me and Eric are like, you know, sucking wind at the back. You're like, what's wrong with this thing? And just realizing, like, especially on the small displacement bikes, just how lazy I was in my skills of just like, oh, you know, this is a clutch and this is a gas. I've been doing this my whole life, but knowing exactly when to shift and when to brake and body position, I was just like, oh man, I'm a rookie when it comes to actual true speed and milking speed out of things.
Yeah.
But
another training facility or school is Bill Dragoo. He's in Oklahoma. I think his company's called Dragoo Adventure Rider Training. And he also is the guy that hosts all of the classes at the Overland Expos every year. So he's kind of like the top guru in adventure rider training, and he has multiple levels of what you can do in his class. So
yeah. And I mean, I don't want to try and like pull us back to Freshline, but like essentially, if you did the boot camp, you could go and spend a lot of money on all these trainings, and they would be great. Or you could do the boot camp, get a bunch of Freshline stuff out of the way, be eligible for leadership, and get to see elephants. So I know Colorado's really cool. I've been there, but if I can do that, or if I can go and camp with elephants, I'm camping with elephants.
What kind of bikes do you use at boot camp?
We have a fleet over there, but we're thinking of turning it over. We have bikes over there that you can just beat the hell out of. Is essentially what we wanted. Like we bought those for that reason, that we knew we were going to be absolutely horrible to these things. Because all the rental, like to rent a motorcycle in Namibia is going to cost you 280 euros a day. So that doesn't work. And then, so yeah, we have XR 600s, GS, or F650 Dakar, XT 660, TT 600. So just all, kind of. PD's got a HP2, which I hear is pretty insane in the desert.
HP 1200, yeah, HP2 1200.
Yeah, I think it was
But for the most of the bikes you'd be riding are kind of that 500 to 600 cc range, in kind of a range of like enduro to adventure bike. Yeah. So.
And I mean, as the club goes, as we grow and there are more funds available, we like PD, our local there, he's really good buddies with the Yamaha dealer. And so I wouldn't be against, talking about what's it going to be like to go and once if we're filling 5, 6, 7 boot camps a year, then we have the funds to go and buy a fleet of WR 450s or whatever, right? So it all depends. I hate that answer, but it all depends.
Okay. And the 5,000, does that also include the ticket? Normally it doesn't.
No,
not airfare. Too much of a range of how people like to do it.
Because we got guys coming from all over the globe. So like for Thailand, an Australian guy, he paid like $100 to go to Thailand.
Oh.
But then when he came to Guatemala, it cost him like $1,800. So it's all like, wow, it averaged out for us because we paid whatever $900 for both those trips. And so yeah, just depending on where we're going. Yeah. It depends. Oh man, I just need to get a sign. Just like hold it up.
On that note, too, guys. Some of you guys have heard this before, some haven't. As far as that price point goes, like if you're interested, some guys just put that down and they'll say, "Here's the $5,000, save my spot." Some guys, what they've asked in the past and what we've started to accommodate more so has been putting money down over time. So basically prepaying for the trip in stages. And so what we can do is you tell us like what amount you'd like taken out on a monthly basis. And then we can take that amount over time, looking at collecting the full amount between now and end of September next year. So
yeah,
we can also break
it's pretty, it's a little bit more manageable. It's pretty seamless. It's all automatic from the credit card. Phil's been on the payments. Phil, you can fill us in. How's that been? You like paying that bill, don't you? Where'd he go? We lost him.
He's on the call, but he might be checking.
Boot camp is $5,000, but what's that membership for Freshline? Is that different? Like a monthly membership?
Right now, it's all included. So in the future, we're potentially looking at doing a small monthly membership fee, just because there's a fair amount of like time and effort that goes into facilitating the calls and the trips and all that stuff. For now, though, basically if you're in right now, nothing else is associated, so it's just the trip cost.
We have
on the any vibe or like question. I will say when I met the guys, it was via I think Instagram and had not talked to anybody in person. And literally sent money via PayPal going, holy shit, did I just join like a pyramid scheme?
Yes, you did.
I went through the same
It's
thing.
just a really long con.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I referred Mike and Kemper to it. And they had never guys. So I was like, well, I did the pyramid scheme because I turned into 2.
Yeah. Now I get all these perks.
We literally got on the plane and flew like 16 hours to Southern Africa, which I'd never been to, and then got in a cab and went to this hotel and was like, either my organs are getting sold or like, I don't know what the fuck is going to go on when I get here. Oh, look, there's guys on their bikes. I didn't get fucked.
Yeah.
We're all here.
So as a non-American member, I can vouch for their legitimacy.
Here I am thinking that I shouldn't have just showed my credit card on camera. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
We were just snapping photos the whole time.
That's right.
Don't worry about those charges, Joey.
Yeah.
It's all for the cause, man.
What?
There are
So-
trips before the boot camp next year. So is that we can do a trip if we want to before the boot camp, or
Oh yeah.
boot members should probably just go right to boot camp?
That option is Colombia at this point. That's really your only option because that's kind of the order that they're coming in.
Okay.
So yeah, there'll be Colombia, and that's in April, and then I'm still working on. I might be doing an Arctic Circle trip up here in Canada in the summer, obviously. And then you've got the boot camps and the expeditions. Kemper, I'm drawing a blank. What's first in Namibia? Is it the boot camp first?
Boot camps first.
Right.
And, I think a lot of what people are seeing on the website, COVID obviously threw a lot of the best laid plans of mice and men, into the washing machine and spit them all out. So those were trips that were planned at some point. We've still got kind of loose itineraries. We're trying to figure out, where exactly to fit them in 2023. And as we get into 23, we should have a pretty good cadence where our goal would be, I don't know if we'd be there the first half of 23, but the goal would be to do a trip a month, have enough leaders and have enough members who are looking to do that. And, then the numbers start to kind of make sense that this can actually, remain self-funding. So that's the goal. If you have places you particularly want to go, I would, reach out over text or email to Eric or us, put a vote down and we'll try to prioritize it. But it's going to be based on what's open, what we think is going to stay open, what's possible to get to, given everything going on.
Yeah. On that note, guys, some of you might have to run here. So I just want to be clear. If you want to get into Namibia boot camp, Namibia expedition, or Colombia was full actually, and we just had 2 guys, I think, that have dropped back. That's not entirely clear, but so there might be 2 spots open for Colombia. So if you want to get into any one of those, but primarily we're looking at Namibia, shoot me a text. I've been texting with all of you guys. Shoot me a text right now and just say, hey, I'd like to jump onto a call, and then we can discuss boot camp. There's some of the details of that. Some of you guys have already paid before COVID. Feel free to text me and say, yeah, I'm interested in going to boot camp Namibia or expedition. Cool. I'm getting the text coming in. So yeah, text me right now. Let me know, and then what I'll do is I'll reach back and we'll set up a call. And we'll discuss whatever trip you want to go on. Just let me know in the text if you can what you're interested in, whether it's boot camp or Namibia expedition or Colombia expedition, and then we'll talk about that. I'm getting a bunch of texting, so that's cool, guys.
Thank you, fellas.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
And that doesn't necessarily lock you into anything. It's just discussing, hey, does this work for you? If you guys have made payments already, we'll talk about where you're at. If you haven't made payments, we'll talk about what that might look like, and then just details of either of those or any of those trips. On that.
And there's something else to be said. Because we are in limbo, we do have guys that have just said hey, I'm in. I want to go somewhere. I don't know based on holidays and all this stuff. So they'll just go on payment plan to just kind of say I'm paying towards a trip. I don't know. And then say in 6 months I say, hey, we're doing Chile, and then you could say yeah, that totally works for me. How much have I paid? And I'll tell you, what you've paid $2,600, and then you can and then we'll change your payment plan or you pay the rest. So lots of guys like to do that just so they kind of know they have money's in the coffers there, and then it's not sprung on them of $75,000. So that's definitely an option. We just kind of
That's
And
what
you
I
all
did,
of the
right?
funds in Bitcoin, right? So we can get a trip
Yeah.
there for the following year.
Dogecoin, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Dogecoin, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
A little anecdote just to make the Namibia boot camp seem like it's worth it. I know that PD and Mike both run their own businesses teaching their respective skill sets for a pretty penny. You know, you spend $500-600 a day just to learn shooting from them. So to get those guys for 2 weeks, and you know, the experience is, you know, definitely worth any premium on those 2 trips over standard. Pretty much takes the whole thing in my book.
Yeah. And I think too, Simon, on your point, like when PD took you guys like for the hunt and you guys like shot the eland, like how much do people pay for an African hunt? Like big dollars. And it's like, oh, we'll just go to my uncle's ranch and waste this eland and have a barbecue. And you're all like, how much is that worth?
I was spotting. Eric was the one that took it down, but I've got good photos on that.
Yeah. That's,
No,
I know we didn't talk about that, but there is an opportunity. If you go to boot camp, there's an opportunity to do the same thing, to tack on a hunt at the end as well. So that's a bit of an extra thing, but it's like minimal extra. To what Jordan said, like we know guys pay thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars to go on an African hunt, and for us it was like, what was it, Simon? A couple $100, I think.
Yeah, $150 or something silly.
Yeah. It's basically the gas and ammo. Yeah, just to get out there. So yeah. Yeah, guys. Any other questions?
Yeah, just I'm in here real quick. Just to confirm, the Namibia expedition for next is coming up 2022, right? December, first week of December.
So expedition, yeah, is first week of December. Right now, we're looking at December 1st to 10th.
Hopefully, if the world doesn't shut down.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it, Levi. Good to see you on here, man. I know it's been a while since our morning calls. We're doing the Wednesday evening ones now, but yeah, if you're interested in that, I know you're also partially paid up. So shoot me a text, and we'll get up on top. Let you know where you're at.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Camping gear and all that, is that bringing your own camping gear, or are we?
Yeah, so it's a good question, Sean. We can provide some camping gear, but if we're talking about Namibia, which is where the camping would take place, really the only things you need are a sleeping mat and a thin sleeping bag. Actually, and it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have some kind of mosquito net. I missed on that, and there was really one night in particular where that became a pain in the ass. But that whole trip, like I took a tent and gear and all that. I didn't even use the tent the whole time I was there. I just slept on a mat under the stars, and yeah, it was good that way. So up to you how minimalist you want to be. It does cool down in the evenings a bit, for sure. We're going to be there during the winter. If we're going in December, it's going to be going into their spring, summer. So yeah, so it'll be warmer, but it does cool down a bit at night. Overall, I found it more comfortable without having a tent.
And then for the boot camp, is that going to be staying in one spot, camping as well?
No, you're all over the country.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you're all over the place. You're out there, man.
Awesome.
You're out there. Yep.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I might have misheard. One more. December 1st to the 10th is Namibia.
So there's it's confusing, Joey, because there's 2 dates. Namibia boot camp. There's Namibia boot camp and there's Namibia expedition. Namibia boot camp, which is where you get all the skills training. That's going to be September 26th to October 6th, and then Namibia expedition is December 1st to 10th.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. If you haven't done Namibia, I'm going to strongly recommend the boot camp. I actually am looking more forward to the boot camp than the expedition, just because, as Simon kind of said, you get an incredible amount of skills training from ex-special forces guys who are pretty dialed in on what they do, as well as we're going to have training from a mechanic over there. and just a number of like aspects of leadership training. I think it's going to be really well rounded. Riding training as well. We're going to have some guys over there that can teach you some of those riding skills. So yeah, it's a lot more comprehensive.
And life happens. So like whether having a kid or death in the family. So is there like a time where you could maybe back out because of that life situation?
Yeah. So for each of the trips we have, like we'll have a refund policy. We can go through that on the call. But generally speaking, up to roughly 6 months before the trip, you get a full refund. After that, it's kind of incremental, depending on how close we get to the trip dates. And then as we get closer and closer to those trip dates, we say we're going to give you a partial refund and a partial credit for future trips, unless we can fill your spot. So if you can find somebody to fill your spot, or we can fill your spot, we'll give you a full refund. If we can't find that, then there are things that we've paid for already along the way that it's like, hey, we can only afford to give you a partial refund because this money's already sunk costs.
Yeah, backing out impacts everybody else on that trip because the leader's getting it paid for, right? So
it's in part it's actually more so the accommodation. So even in Namibia where we're doing a lot of camping, there are a number of places where we have accommodation where we'll rent like a proper place with a pool and whatever, and we have those every few days as well. So every few days is like, it's kind of 1 or 2 nights of camping, and then a place like that where you have like a place that's a little bit nicer, and a pool, and a bed, and a hotel, and whatever. Or not really a hotel, that's the wrong way of putting it, but like, I don't know, like nice villas, huts, whatever. So, and this depends again on country, but Namibia is that. So you get some like really nice places, some kind of in between places, and some rough in it. So that's all paid for ahead of time as well. The nice places. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Actually, I have one more. I feel like I've been talking a lot. I'm sorry, guys.
No worries.
No, that's good.
Sponsorships, like any connections with Yamaha, because I have 6 street bikes in my garage, 0 adventure bikes. So do you have anything any connections or relationships with dealers or anything like that where I could kind of get into that adventure bike genre in the next year?
The only real sponsor we've got is Moscow. We've had kind of small sponsors here and there for gear on specific trips. And we haven't even reached out to any of the moto companies yet for sponsorship. The thing that they're going to be looking for is exposure. So what we're going to continue to do kind of on the back end is get a little bit better at actually documenting these trips as we go through them, because it is relatively unique what we do. And as we do that, we build up a following. And we kind of have done that to some degree. We kind of hit like 30,000, 30-something thousand, I think, followers on Instagram. I think what we need to do, like this is more marketing stuff, but we're going to look at leveraging different platforms. So that might include Instagram, but we're also looking at more heavily starting to delve into YouTube, which we haven't really done at all. So in order to get those sponsorships, we need the exposure, and we don't have enough to justify like the bigger moto companies looking at us at this point.
Got it. Okay.
Give me a deal on the KTM I'm selling.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I may pick your brains maybe after this about what would be a good adventure bike to go with, or KTM, BMW, Moto Guzzi. I mean, there's so many out there, so I'll pick your brains after.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And everyone has their preferences too. I think in general, I think we're big fans of the KTMs, but I mean, I ride a BMW. Depends on again.
Dentist.
Yeah, depends on your preferences. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. That's it. I promise. That's it.
It's all good.
Eric, real quick on marketing stuff. Just somebody mentioned Overland Expo a little bit ago, and I am an hour and a half south of Overland Expo West. If you guys want, Moscow was there in 2019. They were out there. If you guys want me to go up, I can probably get in and do some talking.
Yeah, we can talk, man. I know one thing that we've sucked at, because this is not our gig. This is not like we all have our own full-time jobs. We've talked about like, we should probably go to some of these expos and get some exposure there, and it's always just been not having the time or the resources to go and do that kind of stuff. So yeah, we can talk, Phil, and see if there's something viable there where we can set something up.
I'm 10 minutes from Coda, so you let me know if I do become a member, or if you guys accept me as a member. I'd love to set up shop there.
I don't know, man. You look sketchy.
Yeah, very much.
That's
so.
what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It's the Christmas decoration.
Yeah, that's
weird.
Anybody that sets Christmas decorations is not trustworthy. Yeah, guys. I mean, like Jordan said, this thing's kind of evolving. We started it by accident, essentially, and we're kind of like figuring things out as we go. So we're more professional than we were a year ago, 2 years ago, but we still probably have a long way to go. So we're definitely interested in that, though. We know we should be having more of a presence because we never have. We've had zero presence at anything motor related. So yes, we absolutely want to get involved, get in there, and get ourselves known. So for sure, keep those opportunities open, and I'd love to have conversations with you guys about what we can do there. Any other questions, guys? I know a lot of you guys have been hanging out here. Nope. All good? All right, gents. Well, I appreciate your time. This was very much not a normal member call. If you guys are interested in what the normal member calls look like, show up next week and we'll have a normal member call, which means we're not going to be talking about expeditions or trips or anything. We're just going to be talking on a more personal level. So it's going to be the same link, same time, next Wednesday, and they're bi-weekly from there for the member calls. Cool, guys. If that's it, nobody else has any other questions, and have a good night. Appreciate your time coming on and having a chat with us.
Thanks, guys.
See you. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Eric, just real quick.
Yeah.
Are there new dates for Mongolia yet?
We have summer 2023 for Mongolia, but we don't have the exact date set just yet.
Okay.
We'll announce that summer 2022. We'll lock in the dates.
Okay.
The only reason we don't is because Mongolia is up and down as far as letting us into the country. So
Makes sense.
As soon as we know we can get in there, I'm going to be the first one to sign up for that trip. Yeah, I'm in. Yeah.
All right.
If I let you.
That's true. If you're really nice. Actually, if I make it, I might need to pass boot camp first.
If I don't make it past the boot camp, I'm sure I would be very willing to drive the sport truck. I'm good at that. I'm good with 4 wheels.
Yeah.
There's a lot less of those.
Yeah, I know. Mongolia should be really... I think it'll be a bit of both. I think it's going to be one of the most epic trips we do, and I think there's probably going to be stretches where it's just going to be... Frankly, it might be really boring. Just long stretches of through the Gobi Desert or something. So, we'll see. I'm still stoked to go. Still super, super stoked to go, but I think it's going to be one of those trips that has a lot of both.
Yeah.
Has
there been much talk about the Norway trip?
Jordan, do you have anything to say about Norway?
I do not. It's one of those places that it's that's been the neglected sister. Like, we've been so hard on Colombia and Namibia that it's kind of like, oh yeah, shoot, like we need to get some stuff figured out for that. So yeah, we have a member from there, and I wanted to pick his brains a little bit.
Yeah.
Before we commit to anything. So yeah, it's definitely in the works. It's in the oven.
It's one of those things that we had when COVID started. It was like, okay, that'll be on next year's trips, and then it just got kiboshed because of COVID. So the countries we're picking right now and we're presenting to you guys, basically the countries that will let us in, that we have plans for.
We can go in.
Yeah. So
Cool, man. Super stoked.
Cool. Right on, guys.
Thanks, guys. Good talking to you all.
Yeah, man. Cheers, guys. Have a good
Thanks
night.
for having me. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again.
Take care, fellas. Later.
See ya.
Bye.